A reading from the book of Sirach. The Lord is a God of justice who knows no favorites. Though not unduly partial toward the weak, yet he hears the cry of the oppressed. The Lord is not deaf to the wail of the orphan, nor to the widow when she pours out her complaint. The one who serves God willingly is heard. His petition reaches the heavens. The prayer of the lowly pierces the clouds. It does not rest till it reaches its goal. Nor will it withdraw till the Most High responds, judges justly and affirms the right, and the Lord will not delay. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
A reading from the second letter of St. Paul to Timothy. Beloved, I am already being poured out like a libation, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have competed well. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on, the crown of righteousness awaits me, which the Lord, the just judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but to all who have longed for his appearance. At my first defense, no one appeared on my behalf, but everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood by me and gave me strength, so that through me the proclamation might be completed, and all the Gentiles might hear it. And I was rescued from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil threat and will bring me safe to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus addressed this parable to those who were convinced of their own righteousness and despised everyone else. Two people went up to the temple area to pray. One was a Pharisee, the other was a tax collector. The Pharisee took up his position and spoke this prayer to himself. O God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, and adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes on my whole income. But the tax collector stood off at a distance and would not even raise his eyes to heaven. But he beat his breast and he prayed, O God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and who humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay, I need a local pro on local geography. I need a local pro on local geography, so you can even try to answer the question, but I might have to pick on you. What's the best way to get from this church to Princeton Hospital, driving? What's the best way to get from here to Princeton Hospital? Anybody want to take a shot at that? By car. Okay, good. Now we're starting off. Good, we got it rolling by car. Okay, good. Now, let me clarify the question. By car, what's the best way to get from... That's really good. Professor, you didn't... Yeah, you're right. You are right. By car, from here to Princeton Hospital. So you're in the car. Which is the best way to drive? Go out which way? Blackwell's Mills Road. Okay, good. So let's see. Sid, you think you know the areas around here pretty well, right? So do you go along with Allison's theory, Blackwell's Mills Road? Which way would you go? Canal Road all the way out. And then what? 206. 206. All opposed to the 206 theory? Okay. Okay, yeah, well, because the hospital's not in Princeton, it's over there now. Okay, let me clarify the question. If you were driving from here to the new Princeton Hospital, okay? way over there, okay? So through Kingston, through Rocky Hill, right? That part of the world. But sooner or later, you have to cross over from here to the other side of the canal, right? Easy. So you coming up at the crossing of the canal, Sid, you got us going eventually, well, to the old Princeton Hospital, but to the new Princeton Hospital, you got to go across the canal. Okay, so let's say you're going from here to the hospital, and you go down to, now we're going to complicate the question, if it's really been raining, if you stay home, go to Somerset instead, right? Okay, so you can't get there. By boat, okay, so that is one possibility. You climb in your boat down at the Conoco station and you paddle your way down. That's one option, but then you wouldn't fit under the bridge. So the normal route would probably be go across one of those bridges and then go down Canal Road and over that way. If it's raining, well, you should probably either go all the way down through Princeton or probably more likely from here, just drive over and get on the Canal Road on the other side over by the deli, right? Right? But now the third question is the complicated one. What if you're driving from here to Princeton Hospital, down on Route 1, and it's been raining, but you underestimate the rain, and you go to cross over at Blackwell's Mills, and then you go over to Griggstown, and they're both closed. What do? So you go all the way down to 206, or come back up here, go over Amwell Road, okay? And then if you decide to go for 206, and this is what happened not too long ago. I went in exactly this boat. I got down to Blackwell's Mills, and it had been raining. It was a while back. And can't get over there. Okay, I'll try Griggstown. Okay, can't get over there. So I'll go down 206. Guess what? When you get down to that place where Lucy's Kitchen is, where you want to get down into Princeton and go around, road closed. Remember that when the bridge was out there? And so you have to go from here to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then around and back up through whatever that place is, Ewing Township or something. What would have been the best thing for me to do? Go down to Blackwell's Mills, say to myself, okay there, Sherlock, it's raining, the next couple of bridges are going to be closed. How about just go back up to Amwell Road? You know that's open, go over there and down. So just back up, just retrace your steps, go around this way. But there are persons of a certain demographic who don't like to ask directions and don't like to retrace their step. I happen to be a member of that demographic class, okay? And we know a lot about who they are, but we don't want to get too stereotypical, right? The most logical move would have been just back up. You know that you can get to there from this other way, so just do it. It's easy. No, the dialogue is going on in my head. I must press on. And as I'm waving at 3 Mile Island over there, going around Harrisburg, I'm thinking, why, it would have been easier just to go past the deli, huh? I don't know where the place was. There was some town I'd heard of a long time ago, like in history class, and I ended up I thought, how did I get here? Question. So we know that we are rational beasts. God has made us as rational creatures, and we have a goal. And our goal is to get from wherever we are further into the peace of Christ, the peace that only Christ can offer in this life and in the next. That's the goal. Beatitude, right? We want to get to that peace of Christ. We want to get there all the more, and we always start from wherever we are. And sometimes we're trying to get to that peace and just living our lives, day in, day out. And then something comes along. It's not a flood. It's a serious loss. It's a great experience of frustration or being powerless or losing something that really matters. Either something we had and was taken away, or something that we always wanted, but we know now we're never going to get. What do you do when you're trying to find your way to that peace of Christ and this loss comes into your life? Do you press on, And what's the spontaneous reaction to these great losses? You get sad, and before you know it, even before you have time to own the sad, you get to angry. And trying to get to that peace of Christ, over the angry bridge, it's real hard to do. It's very, very hard to do. Because we're at this way with one set of people and trying to be this way with God. I get it. Anger makes perfect sense, but when we get to that point where we're really trying to get to the peace and the Christ isn't telling us, it's like we're not really praying, we're just sort of yakking at God about injustice and whatnot. That's the signal. Because we know when our prayers are piercing the clouds, when the first reading says, we have a pretty deep sense of that, and we can all kind of tell when am I just going through the motions. Well, then it's time to back up, and back up to what? Back up to sadness. You can't get there from here, and no matter how hard you push going in that direction, you're not going to get there. You might be able to get there eventually by way of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But anger is not going to get you to that peace of Christ. Anger does do other useful things, but it doesn't get us to the peace that only Christ can offer. Standing in the sadness and telling Jesus about it, that's the prayer that gets us to the peace of Christ. And that's the example that's set in each one of the readings today. You get it? You have a big loss in your life. It either frustrates you or makes you feel powerless, and eventually it's going to make you angry. But in that little slice between loss and anger is this sacred space of sadness where we can tell God, this is how I feel. I'm really feeling sad about this. And those are the clouds that's when the clouds get pierced. This is when we're courageous enough to back out of the anger, back up, right up, River Road, up to Conoco Station, back up, and tell God, I'm really feeling sad about this. And everybody in the readings did that today. And so, in the first reading today from the book of Sirach, this is a book that didn't make it into the Protestant Bible, it made it into the Catholic Bible. Written around 150, got by a wise fellow named Sirach, surprise, in Jerusalem. And the passage that we get today is about people who have had significant losses in their life. Orphans, they've lost their parents. Widows who've lost their husband. The oppressed who've lost their claim on society. And not a one of them is railing at God or plotting reaction or trying to figure out, strategize about getting even. No, the orphan wails, the widow complains, the oppressed praise. And those word choices point us in the direction of believing that, you know what they're talking to God about is that great big experience of loss. They're not railing, they're not angry, and they have every reason to be because people are treating them rough. But the way this thing works is that, no, they're backing up, they're just telling God, I hate being an orphan. I feel really terrible about that, Lord, and I feel sad, and I feel ripped off, and this is the way it's going. Those clouds, those prayers pierce the clouds of heaven. They could be angry, but they're choosing to be in that state of sadness and tell God about what's going on. In the second reading today, Paul has every reason to be completely furious with all of his alleged friends. Why? Because they ditched him. Paul goes up for trial in Rome, and not one person stood by him. Not one person who claims, through thick and thin, Paul, will do whatever you want. No, they all bailed on him. And that horrifies him. And it angers him. And it makes him sad. And he acknowledges it. I feel awful because my friends deserted me. But notice at the same time that he feels awful and he's not going on and on and on about terrible things that should happen to those who deserted him. No. Instead, he's saying, I feel this is a terrible burden on my soul. And at the same time, he has had this connection with God in the same chunk of the letter that we get here today, where he admits that how awful he feels and how sad he feels. He's backed up from the anger into the sadness, talks to God about it, and then is able to come away with the confidence that says, I have run the good race, I have fought the good fight, I have kept the faith, and I now look forward to the merited crown. That's a powerful place to be in prayer, when you can tell someone else, this is how much confidence I have in God now. There's beautiful, beautiful stuff going on in Paul's heart. He has every reason to be angry. He has every reason to wig out on the people who ditched him. But he has the courage to acknowledge this great big loss I've had in my life. And when he does that, he has this amazing connection with Jesus. His prayers are piercing the clouds. We know that. And what about in the gospel? So
The tax collector, there's no record of a tax collector who liked being a tax collector. There's no record of a tax collector who liked being a tax collector. That's signing up for a job. Guaranteed, part of your job description is tolerate everybody's disdain for you. Nobody's going to like you, and you're not going to like yourself. So any sense of connection you had, out the window. Any sense of self-esteem you had, out the window. You lose all that stuff when you sign up to be a tax collector. Everybody hates you. There's no getting around it. Right? You lose all that stuff. And in that state of loss, the tax collector is able to go in and just say to the Lord, standing in that sense of loss, the tax collector is able to say to God, you know what, God, I'm a sinner. Have mercy on me. But you notice the detail? That the Pharisee spoke this prayer to himself. Amazing detail. The Pharisee spoke this prayer to himself, and the tax collector, who's the lowest of the low, speaks the prayer that pierces the clouds of heaven. God, have mercy on me. I've lost all this stuff. I've made some rotten choices, and I feel awful about it. He's courageous enough to acknowledge where he feels a sense of loss. Courageous enough to acknowledge what makes him sad. Courageous enough to acknowledge he's a little bit out of control. And that's the humbling that leads to the exaltation. Because when we feel angry and revved up, there's the place for that, but it's a place where we kind of presume that we have power. Just acknowledging, Lord, I feel awful about this thing. Those are the prayers that pierce the clouds of heaven. When we're courageous enough to back up from anger into sadness and have that fundamental conversation, Lord, here's what makes me feel so rotten. Holy anger is a good thing and well used if it follows the courageous confession to God of, Lord, this is what I'm going through, and this is what really makes life hard these days. And I know you know, and I know that you know, and I know that I know, that we have a sense of when we're really connected to Christ and when our prayers are piercing the clouds of heaven. And we know that we get there by backing up, not pursuing the anger for a moment, backing up and saying, you know what, Lord, I'm wiped out, man. Rather than, could you help me flatten his tires, get even, do this, incur the wrath, treat him like somebody from Rhode Island? No, none of that. Just back up and feel sad. Example, it's a little bit too close to home, but hey, that never stopped me before. I was able to bring to closure yesterday after it's this question of my brother's estate. Now, it's a really simple, straightforward thing. And there were two goofy people in this whole process, God bless them, keep them at a distance from me, who really complicated things unnecessarily. Really made life tough. And sometimes when I'd be going over this stuff and I would just be speaking these prayers to God that really shouldn't be in part of the Christian prayer book, you know what I mean? Like, Lord, what's going on, man? And then you get to that point where you realize, you know what, Hank, there's just a mountain of sad. So tell Jesus about that. I feel really sad that my brother died. I love this guy to death. I feel really sad that after everything we tried, that the cures didn't work. I feel really sad that my friend who gave him a kidney has to live with this sense of, incompletion. I feel really sad that my nephews have no parents in their 20s, right? I feel really sad about all this stuff. I feel really sad that this stuff that shouldn't have been complicated got to be complicated. And I get to this place of thinking, Lord, I know you're listening right now. And I ask for your guidance. And I ask you to be with me and with them. And friends, when the prayer gets to that place, when it comes out of that place, I know in my guts it's piercing the clouds of heaven. And I know that you have experiences too, just like that. And I know that everybody has a reason to be angry sooner or later. But notice it. What gets you angry? It's a sense of loss. What immediately follows the sense of loss is sadness. It takes courage to stand in the sadness and talk to God. And so where do you need to back up? Where's that place where you're as angry as a hornet? And you are right to be angry. But you know what? The way you pray when you're angry isn't doing it for you. And you know it. And the call is to back up. You know what? When you see the mean girls in school, Yeah, they're angry all the time and they're nasty, but underneath it all is some big, huge loss that they can't identify, and that's why they gang up. Mean boys, the same way. When we get to the angry people on the highway, road rage is just another way of expressing some fundamental loss that I haven't named yet. Bigger anger, anger with people, anger with former spouses, anger with former in-laws, anger with former bosses, you name it. Underneath it is some sense of loss that Jesus needs to hear about. Everybody in the readings did it today. They had the courage to back up from the anger into the sadness and then talk to Jesus. Can you name one place where you need to do that? One place where the anger is a little bit strong, and you know in your heart of hearts that you need to pray in a slightly different way. So back up, stand in the sadness, be courageous, and then tell Jesus about it. Because the chances of getting just with straight anger from here to peace are about a little less than the chances of getting from here over the canal after a 14-inch rain, and you know it. Where do you need to back up? I can promise you that if there's any place, and hopefully you're not having one of those days today, or a week this week, or a chapter in this life right now that's sort of messed up by anger, but I promise you, underneath any experience of anger is experience of loss. Any experience of anger stems ultimately from an experience of loss. Now, when we want to connect with Jesus, we can try it with anger, but that's like trying to get over that bridge when the flood's here. Instead, we can back up and talk to Jesus in that state of sadness and tell Jesus what's going on and why we feel sad, and feel the love and feel the wisdom, and I promise you, takes courage to back up. Lord, this is what's going on in my guts, and I feel really sad about it. Watch those prayers pierce the clouds of heaven. So where's one place in your life right now where, maybe there is some anger going on? And it's okay, because you know what? You got a good cause. But you're not connecting to Jesus the way you want to, and that means you have to back up before you do anything else and stand in the sadness and offer your prayers conversationally. Where do you need to do that? Jesus makes it pretty clear. He really hears us loud and clear when we stand in that place. Let us pray.